So Alan, what if I told you that today you get to run and train with legendary mountain runner Scott Jurek?
Yeah, that sounds crazy. Like maybe a Scott Jurek, but not like the Scott Jurek. When I first got into trail running, it never occurred to me that I can even run with the fastest person on my local trail, let alone a mountain running legend. It doesn't make any sense why Scott Jurek would be running with me. Whether Scott knows or not, I'm ready to soak it all in. If he says like, "Good to meet you, Alex," I'm gonna be like, "Yep, yeah, I'm Alex today. I'm gonna be running with Scott."
What are we about to do this morning?
I'm about to meet Scott Jurek and gonna run in this really beautiful area of Flatirons. Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Sleepy. Woke up around 4:30. I feel really good, feel really excited. Just rubbing my eyes out a little bit. Morning.
Morning.
Scott, it's great.
Alan?
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
Great to meet you as well. Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. Excited.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's crazy to see you in person, to be honest. So yeah, thanks for coming.
I exist.
Yeah. You know. For me, when I got into running, I never felt like I could run. Growing up, I had asthma. It always just felt like a thing that just felt too hard for me. And when somebody first took me out into the mountains and showed me that was running as well, and sometimes you can hike as part of your running, and you can hike the uphills and run downhill, and all that stuff really changed my life. And so as I got more into running, I think I focused more on that fun aspect. And like, I wanted to run for longer distances because the places I was running in were really cool. But I never really worried myself about pace or things like that. I think for me, understanding training to set it up so that I'm better set up for success is more the goal than perhaps like wanting to do it at a faster pace or things like that.
What I love about adventure runs like this, or any kind of race or ultra, you don't have to have like this perfect training, so to speak. I guess I started trail running thinking more just like, okay, go out for X amount of hours or, try to roughly do this mileage. And it is kind of one of those things where you have to experiment and find out what things work for you. Yes, there are some general rules on like, you could use heart rate zones. Pace is a little bit harder, but I think it is good to think about effort and heart rate. And for people, that's things they can digest or measure on a watch or device. But a lot of it comes down to like just being in tune with your body. You have to, I think, experiment with that, but it's knowing like I need to do a certain amount of climbing in terms of like how much elevation gain, doing downhills. You don't have to get too like number driven, but picking things that are specific to what you're trying to achieve. So just get your body used to it so that you're not kind of getting out there and being like, whoa, I'm way over my head here.
One of the things I love about trail running is that it almost seems like there's a connection to like in ancient peoples and like those kinds of things where you can see where these folks were communing with nature in these natural spaces and they were here.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Foot messengers and, the running traditions among tribes where it was really an important part of things like the Tarahumara who had competitions, or the Hopi and the Navajo runners, and just these steep trail ultra running, whatever you want to call them, traditions. Moving on our 2 feet, 2 legs is something that's like so primal and so much a part of like what we had to do as survival.
So pretty out here. It's wild.
Yeah, and it's special too this time of day. Sunrises and early morning hours are so cool. Yeah, there's so many great things like being out in nature. No matter what you're doing, you're at least getting out there, understanding more about the world around you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a gift. So Alan, you want to pick my brain a little bit on the Wonderland Trail, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring to know that you're like lived in that area for a long time. The trail is inspiring, so it feels like it all makes sense to ask you about.
It's such an amazing part of the country, having spent like 11 years in Seattle. I mean, you're looking at this monster of a volcano. The idea to circumnavigate it by foot, I think, is one of the best ways to see it. But when you're dealing with something that's 90 some miles, and if you don't have gear to sleep on the trail, like you are committed to making certain points, and you're looking at hours of daylight as well as hours that you can bring enough food for that. Because the worst thing is when somebody has to be benighted and spend a night out on the trail, or doesn't have enough food and starts walking off trail being delirious. And those are all elements of like people who've hiked, run out in mountain trails. It happens to people who are well prepared.
I think that's what I like about trail running and running for longer distances, is that you can get through it, and when things go poorly, like it's kind of that test where it's like, okay, it's going to rain for the next 12 hours. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, can you afford to not feel good about it? Like, you have to get to a place, like you mentioned, these conditions being thrown at you. For me, at least, it feels like that mental challenge is something that I enjoy because it forces you to kind of stay calm.
I think it's good to be uncomfortable. And I think I'd even say like it's good to be a lot uncomfortable. I think that's what I love about the sport of trail running, because each, outing is like your own little mini adventure, and you're gonna I think you can be prepared on the physical level, and it's like, how do you handle the different things that are thrown at you, whether it's running a 100-mile race or whether it's running a 3-day self-supported adventure around a big mountain like Rainier, and something that things can really change. So if it does snow a little bit, if it does rain for 12 hours, you're at least maybe not going to be totally comfortable, but you'll be at least able to like complete what you wanted to set off to do. So, water, nutrition, shelter / clothing is really key. I have this formula that I've used for years of 0.7 times your body weight in kilograms equals the number of grams of carbohydrate that you should eat per hour. And on the high end, you could use 1.0 times your body weight in kilograms. And that's grams of carbohydrate per hour. And for a lot of people, that's going to be anywhere from like a gel or something like a banana every 30 to 40 minutes. And then I think like footwear, it's kind of like personal preference of like what works well for certain people. Like I prefer a shoe that has maybe not as much like cushion. I prefer to like have, my feet lubed and avoiding blisters, but blisters and hot spots can make for you can still get it done, but can make for a miserable experience. So knowing, what shoe works best for you, the fit, insole combination, if you do that, and then I think I'm a big fan of making sure, lubricating between the toes and the bottom of the feet, just kind of like all over so you don't have those hot spots. Yeah, I think from a gear standpoint, that's the beauty of something like this, is it's not gear intensive. But the old school 10, 12 essentials still apply to trail running. I think a lot of people think that's old school, but it's pretty important.
So recovery food, I hear about like different ratios and things of that nature, but are there like go-to things that you don't have to think about that you just have after harder effort?
The biggest thing is making sure, especially with something like the Wonderland Trail, where you're going to be doing the same thing the next day and the next day after that, is refueling on your carbohydrate when you finish with protein, and like getting that good dose of protein, somewhere in that 15 to 25 grams with, close to like 100 grams of carbohydrates, like that mini post-recovery meal, so to speak, and I'm doing that within 20 to 30 minutes. So yeah, that timing is really critical to replenish your glycogen stores.
You have such great recipes in Eat and Run, and I've been inspired by other folks that have great recipes, specifically like after harder efforts. When I go out into the Cascades to do something fun, it's gonna take me like an hour and a half to get back home.
Yeah.
So like to really concentrate on like that optimal time of 30 minutes.
Yeah, so that means you pack the cooler or have a powder,
Yeah.
have some bananas. Like, you don't have to have a cooler per se, but you gotta have it like right at the trailhead, so to speak. So that window is really key. Look at the Indian peaks up there.
That is awesome.
Next time you're back, we'll get up in there and do something cool because there's so many beautiful runs.
How's this running been?
It's crazy. Yeah. It's like I feel myself becoming more relaxed, and then I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like you're doing this really amazing thing and it's just starting to feel normal. And I'm just like, hey, Scott, I got another question. And he's like, yeah, what's up? Oh, next time when we go running, I'm like, there's the next time. I'm feeling really grateful right now. Really lucky, pretty stoked. Yeah. So yeah, one of the reasons I never liked running was because running seemed hard, and then I found out running could be fun, so I liked running. And training, I think, makes me think that running is like hard exercise. So when I think about training, I think about it in the context of like, I want to make the adventure fun, and I want to make it a little bit less hard. But what should I be, I guess, prioritizing? Like finding that balance, like you said, right?
I would encourage you to do those fun things. Like to me, I mean, yes, I had a specific goal of like winning races. I'm trying to improve on times, but all these things that I've done with like speed records, yeah, there's a time to go like harder, faster and push your body and challenge yourself. But the end goal really should be about testing yourself out in the elements and just being immersed in your surroundings. And so if there's a route you want to do that sounds fun, you should go for it. I think a lot of people think I have to do like this set kind of training, and training can sometimes then feel like a job.
Yeah.
And it should never feel like that. You know, you want to get ready for things and feel confident. Preparing yourself, you know, physically, mentally for an endeavor, whether it's a race or an adventure, is important. But as a 100-mile ultramarathoner who's doing, we don't do 10-mile training runs or 120-mile training runs. Honestly, most of my training runs were no more than 30, 35. So doing something like a 12 Peaks type of route is great training, and then follow that up maybe with double Mount Si repeats, or do Mount Si repeats one day and then the next day. But you can't do that every week. And that's where I think it's important. So while I'll say, yeah, you want to stress the body, and back-to-backs are one of the ways to replicate what you're going to feel like at mile 70 of a 100-mile race, or what you're going to feel like on day 2 or late in a 35-mile run, without the dangers of doing too much. But when you're out there suffering, and I say that in a good way, like suffering is good for us physically, mentally, and like discomfort or just struggling. The struggle is part of the reason we do this, and the challenge. You're going to have moments where I'm like, oh, why am I out here? And if you've had some experiences of challenging yourself prior to that, you'll be able to draw on that experience. You might be hating life at the time, but when you finish, it's just so awesome to be like, my times when I was most miserable on the trail were some of my most memorable. And there's beauty in that like struggle and that misery. I mean, you're in the mountains, like we should always be happy, but there are times when you're going to feel like, you know, why am I doing this? And the way to get through that, I think, is drawing on experiences you've had, not only in running, but in life. Tune into your breath and take your mind off of maybe some of the discomfort and tune into music. They've done research that can almost be like a analgesic, like ibuprofen, in a way that it can like relieve discomfort, or like almost be like a painkiller in a way. So I think that's that cool balance of like, you have to be mentally in the game, so to speak, of like strategy, of like staying on top of body management, and just having that like primal experience, which in modern life we don't get a lot of opportunity. So there's a lot of magic out there. It's pretty cool.
Scott, can I ask you about music?
Yeah, sure. I love all types of music. I'm no expert, but yeah.
I listened to both of your books as audiobooks.
Oh, awesome.
So it was really rad to hear you read it. Both you and Jenny talk about electronic music. I'm guessing you're like into kind of maybe like 90s electronic music then, like trance and stuff like that. But just curious, like what you put on.
I mean, I listen to as I like to say, I listen to everything from Rage Against the Machine to to Krishna Das chanting stuff. Like,
So I just came out of this rad record store here in Boulder called Paradise Found. Rad name, rad logo, super stoked. And while I was in there, I went in there specifically to see if they had any Rage Against the Machine records, and they did. Super stoked. I bought this record because, you know, I heard in Scott's book that Rage Against the Machine is something he put on when he was kind of feeling in a funk, and he ended up setting the American record for most miles run in 24 hours. So maybe Scott's gonna sign it.
Yeah, it's funny, like I always felt like I wanted to stay so in tune with my body
Yeah.
that like music could be an interruption. So yeah, like music is something that I didn't use till later. I grew up around like heavy metal and country music, growing up on the stakes into the woods. So wasn't as like, and Beastie Boys, of course. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up in the northern parts of Minnesota where, yeah, there wasn't a lot of diversity in music. So it was a little bit of hip hop culture seeped its way in, but it was basically heavy metal country music. I had the metal hair when like, yeah, metal hair was not, I don't know, it's just like, what is that that's behind you?
So I've heard you say, like, you know, that a lot of things you listen to, but you call out Rage Against the Machine a few times. And so I was hoping that you can sign a Rage record that I bought in Boulder.
No way.
And yeah, this is the picture disc of the first record. Sometimes when I listen to people talk about music that they really like, that's music that I really like, it really resonates. So I was hoping that maybe you might be able to sign the record.
No way. I feel like it's like
I just think it's
Yeah,
kind of like one
okay,
of those
cool.
things that's like inspiring to you. It's
Yeah, yeah.
inspiring to me. And for me, it's like Rage is from LA. We found this record in Boulder. You're in Boulder. That's rad. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's rad. That's so cool. Keep on raging. Yeah. Yeah. So I just spent all day with Scott Jurek, getting to know him, running with him, asking him a bunch of questions that I was super stoked that he was able to share lots of insights around. But the most surprising thing to me was hearing him say, next time you come back, we'll have to do a longer run. I was like, what next? That blew my mind. I can definitely make next happen. I got lots of adventures that are kind of on my docket. So Scott, you let me know when you want next to be. Maybe September for Wonderland, maybe October for the Grand Canyon. I can make next happen. You tell me if the adventure sounds cool enough. The legendary mountain runner Scott Jurek has just inspired so many folks. He's getting to run. Is he getting to run with me? I'm getting to run with him. What am I talking about? Yeah, he gets to run with me. Yeah. Yeah.